Hanging art, it just feels like such a high-stakes project, doesn't it? One wrong move, and you're left with a crooked frame and a hole you have to patch. But honestly, it doesn't have to be that stressful. We're going to turn this task from daunting to done, and we're going to do it with confidence.
Right? You've got that perfect piece of art, you've found the perfect spot for it, but then the fear sets in. The fear of misplaced nails, of wrecking the wall, or, and this is the worst, hanging it just a little too high or a little too far to the left and having it look completely off.
You are so not alone in feeling that way. But today, I'm going to share a few designer secrets that'll have you hanging art flawlessly every single time. Okay? You ready? Let's get into it.
So first up, and this is probably the most important part, where exactly does the art go? It's not just guesswork, believe me. Designers use a few really simple rules to get perfect proportions every single time.
Okay, write this down, tattoo it on your brain, whatever you need to do, because this is the magic number. The center of your artwork should hang between 57 and 60 inches from the floor. Now, why that specific height? Well, it's the average human eye level. This one little rule makes sure your art is always easy to look at and creates this natural, balanced focal point in the room. It just works.
Okay, but what about hanging art above furniture, like your sofa? This is where designers use what's called the golden two-thirds rule. Basically, your art, or even a whole group of frames, should take up about two-thirds of the width of the furniture below it. It's this simple trick of proportion that makes the art and the furniture feel connected, like they're one single cohesive unit.
And what about vertically? You definitely don't want a huge awkward gap there. The sweet spot is hanging the bottom of the frame about 4 to 8 inches above the top of your sofa or console table. It gives it just enough breathing room while keeping that visual link really strong and intentional.
And look, this chart makes that two-thirds rule so practical. You don't even have to break out the calculator. It gives you a super quick reference for common sofa sizes. Got a 7-foot sofa? Bam! You're looking for art that's about 56 inches wide. It just takes all the guesswork right out of the equation.
All right, so we've pretty much mastered placement. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the practical side of things. Because look, the success of your project and frankly the safety of your art, it all depends on using the right gear for your specific wall.
First things first, you got to know what you're working with. Most modern homes have drywall, which is basically a gypsum board that's pretty easy to deal with. But if you're in an older home, you might have plaster, which is more brittle and is backed by these thin wooden strips called lath. Knowing the difference is absolutely key to choosing the right hardware.
Now, no matter what kind of wall you have, there is one spot that is always the strongest, safest bet for hanging anything with some real weight to it, like a big mirror or a super heavy frame. Any guesses what that is?
It is the wall stud. You know those vertical wooden beams that make up your wall's frame? Anchoring directly into a stud is the most secure method you can use, period. You can find them with a simple stud finder. When in doubt, always find the stud. So here's the bottom line. You have to match your hardware to your wall. If you've got plaster and you can't hit a stud, please don't use simple nails. They'll just cause cracks. Go for metal anchors that actually expand behind the wall for a solid grip. For drywall, simple plastic anchors can add a ton of extra support. And those adhesive hooks, they're great, but save them for the really lightweight stuff, like under 5 pounds.
Okay, we've got the rules, we've got the gear. Now it's time for the fun part, actually getting your art up on the wall, whether it's one single statement piece or a whole gallery wall.
Okay, this is without a doubt the best hack for a flawless gallery wall. Seriously. Instead of trying to measure a million things on the wall, just lay your frames out on the floor. Once you love how it looks, trace each frame onto some wrapping paper and mark exactly where the nail needs to go. Then, you just tape that paper to the wall and hammer right through it. It's a total game changer. No more mistakes.
So what's the secret to making a bunch of different frames look professionally curated instead of just cluttered? It's all about the spacing. If you can keep a consistent gap, we're talking 2 to 3 inches, between each piece, it creates this visual rhythm that makes the entire group feel like one big, unified artwork.
And here's another genius, super low-tech hack for hanging a bunch of frames at the exact same height. You can make this little DIY tool with just a piece of scrap wood and a screw. You hang one frame on the screw, line it up with the frame next to it, and once it's level, you just tap the wood to mark the wall for the next nail. It guarantees they're perfectly aligned every single time. So clever.
Now for the really heavy-duty stuff, I mean massive mirrors or art that weighs a ton, you need to bring in the big guns. And that's a French cleat. It's this super strong two-piece system.
One angled piece goes on the wall, the other goes on the frame, and they just lock together using gravity. It is the absolute safest and most secure way to hang something really substantial.
But after all this talk about hardware and hammers and hanging, what if I told you that you don't always need to put a hole in the wall to make a statement? As the brilliant designers at Studio McGee say, sometimes the best move is to skip hanging altogether.
And that brings us to our final pro tip section, the art of leaning. It's a super stylish, totally effortless way to display your art without putting a single hole in your wall.
Leaning art is just such a great way to get that layered, collected look that feels really casual and cool. You can prop a large piece on a mantle to anchor the room. You can layer a smaller frame in front of a mirror to add some depth. Even a tiny little piece tucked onto a bookshelf adds this personal, charming touch. It's all about creating those beautiful, unexpected little moments in your space.
So if we boil it all down, what are the big takeaways? First, follow the rules of proportion. Remember that 57-inch eye level rule and the 2/3 rule over furniture. Second, always use the right hardware for your wall. And third, don't be afraid to think outside the frame and get creative by leaning your art instead.
At the end of the day, the art you choose and how you display it is what turns a house into a home. It's a reflection of you. So with these tools and tricks in your back pocket, the only real question left is, what story will your walls tell next?